I'd like you to consider this. In order for brands to succeed these days in this modern economy, it not only needs to win in the bought media space, but also in the earned media space. And that raises the very interesting issue of media monitoring. In other words, tracking your brand through this very tricky media environment. We're in conversation now with Matthew Wate, who's Research Manager at Media Tenor. Very warm welcome. Thank you for joining us. First of all, before we talk about that, what does Media Tenor do?
We track media reputation based on as close to 100% of media coverage as possible. So we look at your brand or your organization and we capture as close to 100% of coverage as possible. In many cases we do get 100%, and then we're able to understand what are the topics, what are the people, what are the drivers, what are the media that affect your reputation.
I want to talk about the interpretive analysis in just a moment, but explain to me why accurate media analysis, media monitoring is becoming increasingly important in this environment.
I think organizations are beginning to understand that their reputation is not defined by their adverts or their posters, but it's defined by the way people perceive their brand through traditional media. So you learn about a brand through what you hear about them in the news. A fantastic example is Lonmin. You know, they could change their logo, their name, do whatever they wanted, but their reputation is so closely tied to Americana that what they need to do is a perception change. And that takes proper media analysis, understanding how they're being perceived by the traditional media and working in that direction rather than just looking at it as a branding question.
Yet many brands don't get that. They don't see it. They don't understand it.
No, it's surprising to me to think that so many brands try to sort of ignore the past or ignore a reputational issue and just look at it in terms of changing the color of a logo.
So you then confronted with the brand themselves. What kind of methodology would you imply in this interpretive analysis? In other words, what are you looking at and what are you doing with the information?
For us, what is key is understanding that our media analysis is done from the man on the street perspective. So we have human analysts who read every article, listen to every news clip, and turn that into...
As opposed to what? Algorithms and computer programs?
As opposed to a computer program that may do it in a way that misses a lot of things like sarcasm or subtle innuendos or associations that people will make. You know, sometimes your brand is affected even if your CEO is not mentioned by name or your company is not mentioned by name, because people make those connections. So we have human analysts who look at all of these clips, all of these articles, and turn that into data in terms of understanding what are the big drivers on your reputation.
But Matthew, they're applying their own subjective analysis to it. How do we know they're right?
Because what we do, we have an internal mechanism of testing that our analysts are looking at it in the same way. So we compare them to one another. We ensure that people, you know, we compare that to then external sort of benchmarks that we have access to. So we understand the accuracy that we achieve. We achieve accuracy of close to 90% in terms of cross-coder reliability, and that's far better than any computer program we've come across yet.
Is this something, I mean, can a brand's reputation change almost on the flip of a coin? I mean, you raised Americana, for instance. I mean, 1 minute Lonmin was flying high, the share price was doing very well. The next minute it wasn't. So this is something that has got to be a sustainable program. Definitely.
Perception change is a long-term process. What we generally say is that recovery from a reputational impact, a reputational dent, is a 9-month cycle. So you'll see the dip right at the beginning in terms of, you know, a particular crisis, and then over 9 months you should be able to return to where you were. The difficulty is that someone like Lonmin, for example, during that 9-month period is getting more and more dips. So their cycle is going to be a lot longer. And it's the same for the banking sector globally, for example. They're now on a 5-year dip, and it seems likely to continue.
Are you giving the raw data and the brand must do with it what it wants, or are you also intervening as well?
No, we intervene. We don't give raw data at all, because it's, you know, it's just raw numbers, and unless you're prepared to sit there.
So how would you intervene?
We interpret that in terms of providing analysis and saying these are the topics that are affecting your reputation. These are the media who are focusing on those topics. You need to be speaking to them. You need to be proactive. You need to realize that even if you want to only talk about your products, you're being associated with labor issues, you're being associated with international trade for whatever reason. And you need to be speaking about, you need to be proactive and have a share of voice. You need to have a voice in those markets.
Who should you be engaging with? Does this sit within the remit of the marketing director? Is it in the communications department, or should this sit ultimately on the desk of the chief executive?
Well, we find that different companies do it in a different way. I think the strength of having it sit with the CEO is that he or she has the ability to sort of take our recommendations and enact it straight away. Marketing and communication professionals also find it very useful because they can change their strategies on a month-to-month basis to target the media or the segment or the topic that we've identified as being important to them. And what we're able to do, because of the wealth of our data, we've been doing this now for 20 years, we're able to identify trends, and we can tell brands this is what's going to come up in the next few months. So you should already get on board and be proactive and identify how you're going to tackle that communications issue.
Matthew Wate from Media Tenor, thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.